Hello, everyone. Hello, all 308 of my subscribers. I am glad you're watching this. If you are, I don't know. But by the title, you should guess what this video is. This is my Arches retrospective, which is basically just not even going to be a retrospective. It's just going to be my overall thoughts on it. I just call it that because it sounds cooler. Basically, this will be like the Echo one that I did when I finished Echo on the channel for the second time, even though I'd already played the entire game beforehand when it was like releasing. I did it for the channel as well because that was my first real forte into voice work, and man, I really enjoyed it. I really did. By the end of it, I was actually really fucking sad it was over. Took a year to do, but whatever. If you're wondering why I haven't really released any like current up to date playthroughs, voice throughs of visual novels recently, because mainly all the ones that have been released pre-recorded in advance when they go public, um, I've been dealing with some issues essentially where I don't feel any motivation to really do anything. And also, I'm kind of looking for a job right now because I've never had one and I kind of need to have one to survive in the world. It's kind of a thing, you know? I mean, if I had AdSense and enough subscribers, I'd be able to get money off of that, but that's highly unreliable. Whatever. Enough of me whinging and complaining about my life situation. You don't want to hear that, right? Well, some OJ. My little outline here. I don't know if you can hear that. But that's my little outline. It's a piece of paper. I finished it at 1:42, which is about 3 minutes ago. Let's just start. Okay. So I guess I'll just start with a basic plot summary, which shouldn't be that hard, really. Essentially, two lovers, Cameron and Devin, go to Echo to interact with spooky ghosts and stuff, and shit goes down. Shit goes down real fast. So, Arches is the fourth game, I am pretty sure, in the Echoverse, which started with Echo, then Echo Route 65, then the Smoke Room, now Arches. And Arches is complete, and Echo is complete, and Route 65 is complete. So essentially, all that we have left is the Smoke Room. We have to wait for that to finish. But Arches as a sequel, it's not so much a direct plot sequel because Chase and the others don't show up at all. It's more of a thematic sequel, but it also kind of is a direct sequel because Brian is still there. And I was kind of in the early stages of this story as it was being released. I was thinking, okay, what's going to happen? Is Brian going to be here? Are they going to run into Brian? And then lo and behold, they did. And overall, as a sequel, I'd say this is a stellar conclusion to Echo in general, like the town and the series, and I really don't see any way they could continue it after this. But I'll get into that near the end. For now, I want to get into Cam and Dev as characters. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a bit more biased towards Cameron because he's more of my kind. He's more of a character that I like a lot. Dev's cool too. It's just, I don't know. Basically, Cam is a royally traumatized individual who lived most of his life in a trailer park, it would seem, with his drug addicted mother. I don't know. I don't remember what happened to his dad. I think it was mentioned at one point, but he lived with his mom in a trailer park, and then she started doing drugs, and then all of a sudden, she he started doing them too because they were just around the house and it was a way to cope with it, I guess. Um, all of this is really organically. Organically is a bit of a wrong word. It's first explained to you in a conversation between Cam and Dev, because Cam's trying to be completely open with Dev about this, which good. That's what you do with your lover. You tell them things like that. But oh, like, and then of course, Cam was even further traumatized when his mother started seeing arches all over the place, and she thought they were signs from God and the devil at the same time. Like, to get her to heaven, but there's a bunch that are surrounding her that lead to hell or something. I don't remember the exact details, but it's fucking awful. It was fucking awful to read. It was just like, not awful to read in like the sense it was bad, but like, oh my gosh, this is sad. But eventually well, Cam thinks she commits suicide by going under a bridge because it's an arch. And this was right after he said she said that he was an arch and that she was going to save him. So that's a bit of a that's a bit of a thing. And then over the course of the story, Cam comes to terms, well, not really comes to terms with it, but his trauma is brought back full force because he's literally forced to do stuff, which I'll get to when I get to Brian. But oh my god, Brian! Overall, Cameron is a character. I genuinely love him. He is a really good character, and the way that this story is written, it's third person omniscient narrator. I really like it. It kind of reminded me of like To the Lighthouse and other just Virginia Woolf in general. It's just great. Honestly, To the Lighthouse though, it's a novel, all right. It's honestly kind of a depressing novel because of a certain passage and what Virginia Woolf eventually did. Yeah, it's kind of depressing. But on to Devon. Now, Devon, did we even? I don't even think we heard that much about Devon's life in general. I think a lot of it was just Cam, which honestly is interesting. Like, okay, so we know that Devon like must have lived in the Kansas equivalent of this universe because he talks about being horrified by tornado sirens, and there's not many places in the country that you can hear those on a regular basis to be scared enough by them. So I'd have to assume he's from Kansas. And we know that he lost someone, Lapita, and he is trying to find evidence that that person is okay by going to Echo and just in general being into paranormal stuff. It's kind of his coping mechanism with the fact that whoever this person is, because I don't think we ever got a definite explanation, is gone. And it's really, really it's really sad because he thinks he keeps making the worst decisions imaginable for Cam, and he keeps second guessing himself as a form of imposter syndrome. And it's honestly really just holy shit. I wanted to just hug him. I wanted to hug both of these guys, even before the real shit started happening, which says a lot about the characterization. Because I liked Cam and Dev way more than I did Chase or the others within the first hour of this game. It took way longer than that for me to get attached to other characters in Echo. Man, it's really interesting that. I guess it's just Howley's growth as a writer, really. But overall, Cam and Dev are really well fleshed out characters, even if you don't hear much about Dev in general. But yeah. Now I want to talk about a more interesting, not more interesting, but a certainly an intriguing topic, which is Echo. Echo is in the town, not the game, because by this point in the timeline, Echo is just a ghost town. Like there's only two people living there, Brian and Duke, and other than that, completely abandoned. And all I have to say to that is fucking good, because Echo as a town is just a horrible place. And as I was reading, I was thinking about this in the build up to writing this, because it took a lot out of me to fucking finally do this, because I was still emotionally overwhelmed by the game. And I was thinking about how some people actually live like that, that is their existence, and I started crying really much, really hard, because there's nothing I can do. There's literally nothing that one person can do to help those people, and I really wish that I could. But anyway, onto the town itself. Back to fictional horrors, please. Yeah. Echo the Town seems to have originated in the 1800s with James Hendricks the First, because he found a mine there, and there was gold in the mine. And so we thought, oh, I can make a big buck off of this. And I'm we I'm pretty sure that the original Hysteria event was when James Hendricks the First and Jean Biguet had their big fight over James being a bit of I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but a bit of he likes kids a bit too much. James was a bit too much into kids, let's just say that. And John he blamed John because John was a native Masada. It was a one of the Masada natives there, and it was much easier for him to blame them, because the other people in that area hated them, because racism and shit and disgusting bigotry. And because of that, John was hanged, and that probably was the first. Oh my god, that's okay. I'm sorry, I just looked on my phone for a second to refresh and show me a really interesting, a really creepy image. Uh, anyway, back to this. I'm pretty sure that whole incident with John and James was the first hysteria event that planted the seeds for the entire rest of the universe, the entire rest of Echo's existence as a town. Of course, it was probably already there, because it's not just people, it's also something older than the town itself, older than Earth itself, I'm pretty sure, from what we got in TJ's route, where it was like, oh, this thing is older than sin. Whatever the fuck it is. And, obviously, in the sense of fiction, it's a metaphor for recursive trauma and the effects of what that does to a person and a place in general. But within the fiction itself, this thing is some kind of Lovecraftian monstrosity that feeds off of the negative emotions of everyone in the town, and just it's basically a it situation. But there's like it's very much a Twin Peaks mixed with Silent Hill mixed with it. Is the best I can put it. Is the best way I can put it. Um Out of those three, by the way, my favorite would be Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is fucking amazing. Um, but yeah, and because of this thing feeding off of the hate and the fear and the misery, it just cursed the entire land in a giant area. And the only ways that we know for these people to avoid the effects of it are to have sex or do drugs, which are both ways of taking your mind off something. And who else needs to take their mind off things? Traumatized people. So yeah, that's where my main theory, my main like whole thing came from. But essentially from the John Begay incident, then in 1915, Samuel Ayers is the inciting incident, is the reason that hysteria happened, that the 1915 hysteria happened. Sam killing Jack in the mine, even though it was in self-defense. That's going to be the hysteria. That's the hysteria incident for that. And then 100 fucking years later, you have the third hysteria event with Chase and the rest of them, which originated when Chase killed Sydney while being controlled by the fucked up spirit of Samuel Ayers, even though it's not actually Sam because Sam is 100% dead. His soul is being puppeted by whatever the fuck this thing is. So overall, we have three major incidents, and who knows what else that just taint this fucking town for its entire existence. This entity that controls it all and feeds off of it. And you also have certain people that help this thing to feed and grow stronger. And that is the perfect segue into Brian. I really do not want to talk about Brian because I'm not as scared of him as I once was. But when I first was reading Echo back in 2018 at the age of 16, way too young, honestly, way too young, um, Brian fucking scared me. And I'm not talking like regular scare. I'm talking wake up sweating nightmares kind of scare. It wasn't fun. Let's just say that it wasn't fun. But Brian in Arches is still there. He's still hanging out at his trailer in the fucking woods, even though they're not really woods. And he kidnaps Cam and Dev because apparently Cam has the ability to stop these things from attacking him somehow. Oh man, I completely forgot to add that to the script. The fucking psychic powers that Cam had. I could have talked about that in the Cam section. God damn it. Um, but basically, but basically, Brian like knocks. Well, no, he knocks fucking Dev and then shoots Artie. I didn't even mention Arturo because I didn't really have that much attachment to him, but yeah, he's another character that exists in the game. Um, but yeah, basically shoots Arturo, kidnaps Dev, and kidnaps Cameron, who's already passed out because of the thing in the trees. And then when Cam wakes up, tries to trick him with honestly one of the. I was actually tricked myself. I'm not gonna lie, I thought, oh shit, maybe he's turned himself around. But eventually, that creeping dread came back, and I'm like, this is Brian. There's no way he fucking changed his heart. Are you kidding? And then, yeah, he drugs Cameron with psilocybin and other stuff, and then, of course, they have to fucking. He has to, like, navigate Echo while fucking on drugs and experiencing all this other shit. And I cannot tell you how into this part of the story I got. When I was voice acting it, I was so fucking into it that when I was doing the one Psychosis, part 7, apparently I was like so into it that my sister could hear me downstairs, which it really isn't that much because this house is like fucking tiny, but still. Man. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But yeah. Then Brian basically takes them both to the mines, attacks Cam a bit, knocks out a fucking tooth, and then Cam and Brian go into the mines and go into the place where it all began. I'm assuming it's the place where it all began, the mines, but yeah, definitely for Sam. To the one place where Sam killed Jack, and also it's Brian's graveyard. That's really, really scary and stuff. And then a bunch of shit happens. Big old fight between Cam, Dev, and Brian, and you get the fucking fake out where you think that Cam died, and I remember fucking screaming "fuck you" when it was really when they're like, "Oh, it was a fake out. Fuck you, fuck you." But then it wasn't a fake out. It wasn't a fake out. A Cam actually died there. A Cameron actually died there, and he became part of the town in a different timeline. But yeah, then of course, Brian just dies of a fucking heart attack. Which, I mean, that actually kind of suits him. I'm not gonna lie. Pumped up on fucking drugs and shit, and like probably over 50 years old. Yeah, his heart's gonna fucking give out. But yeah, over the course of this story, I was really into it, and I really liked the characters, and I was really emotional. Even if my performance didn't really give it away, but I was really doing, I was trying my best. And man, yeah, this is a really emotional story. Especially for someone like me and other people that have experienced the rest of the Echoverse before this game came out, and were eagerly anticipating it to see what kind of horrors would be thrown our way, only for Howley to exploit our knowledge of this universe to the utmost effect and make us absolutely sob. My god, he's a genius. He's a fucking genius. And I honestly really hope that Howley eventually does do an interview with Vivian Jade, because god, I really want to see that. I really want to see what he has to say about what inspired the game in the first place and how he wrote it and how it, like, I just want to hear him explain this shit, because oh my god, I just, oh man, I was really big into these games back in old times, back in 2018, so fun. But anyway, I guess the overall message of this story is time to get into that now. Um, Honestly, the biggest message that I got from it personally was it doesn't fucking matter what happens when we die. All that matters is how we live our fucking lives now. That's the biggest message I got out of it, really. Because the entire reason they went there was to find out what happens, and it led them to fucking misery. So, yeah. Not exactly a thing that you'd want to fucking do, I wouldn't say. But especially the final line where he's like, "It doesn't matter what happens. They're just gonna experience it together." Yeah, that was a nice line. That was a cool line. I like that a lot. And just the final line being, "They have until they're 110 after all." God, I fucking cried. I was crying, and I was trying my best to hold it back that entire video, because I didn't want to ruin the performance for you guys, and I was fucking crying, okay? I just was, and I didn't. It was just like, I don't want to fucking ruin this. But yeah, I would honestly say the overall message is about how we shouldn't take life for granted, and how what death doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but it doesn't matter what happens after. All that matters is you fucking live, and stop obsessing and worrying over it and stuff. And at least that's what I got out of it, even though I already knew that to begin with. But whatever. It's just like, anyway. Conclusion time. Video is almost 30 minutes long. Still two things to talk about. And the first one's probably going to take a long time to cover, because it's my overall experience with the Echoverse. I don't know why I'm discussing this again, but I wanted to, I guess. It just, I don't know, wasn't really paying attention when what the fuck was that? Oh, it was just my foot on the floor. Of course it was. Um, anyway, my overall experience with this game series. Back in 2018, I discovered Major Minor. And then I played it on the phone, and it was back then I thought it was cool. I thought it was a good visual novel, but over the years, it's kind of gone stale on me. I honestly think it's pretty bad. But after Major Minor, I played Repeat, and when I say I got into that game, I mean it because I was like, I watched Uki Cookie's entire playthrough in like a single fucking sitting for fuck's sake, and then I kept watching other people experiencing the game until I found Vivian Jade's channel back when they were called Decker Link on on YouTube, and yeah, I started fucking having dreams about the game. I started having dreams about it because that's how into it I was. When you're really hyper fixated on something, you start dreaming about it. And yeah, I think I remember the very first update that happened when I was like into it was the whole Cecil dream sequence after he gets pulled into the lake by the remnant. That was the first update that I experienced. That was the first cliffhanger I experienced with him being dragged in there. So yeah, that was a bit of a thing for sure and stuff and all of that sort of thing. And oh my gosh, it's so interesting, isn't it? But then I found Echo. I was just on Itch.io one day. Well, that's not true. I found Echo on Vivian Jade's channel, and then I went to Itch.io and I downloaded it. I like watched the first few minutes of it, thought, "Ooh, this is interesting," and then I went and downloaded it, thinking it was going to be a regular dating sim because back then the page didn't have a warning. It didn't have a content warning. Terrible move on their part, but at least it's rectified now. So yeah, I start playing Echo, start experiencing it. Oh boy, this is so spooky. That wasn't my thought. My first thought was, ooh, these characters are cool. I like them. And then the first nightmare sequence happened with the anchor in the lake, and I was like, oh, this is really fucking. That came out of nowhere. What's this about? I was like really creeped out. And then they went to the theme park, and then Chase fell asleep. And I remember I chose TJ to lean on, and then Chase fell asleep, and had that second nightmare. And by this point, I was like, oh, is this a horror game? Is this a fucking horror story? And let's just say it was. Because that game took over my fucking life for a long ass time. I mean, I was like, until it ended. Like 2 years ago now, I'm pretty sure. Like 3 years ago now, actually. 3 years ago. Jesus fucking Christ. I think it's 3 years at this point. Maybe it's 2 years. It's probably 2 years, actually. Whatever. The point is, it's been a while since it finished. And for the entire run where it was still going, I was reading every update. I was watching every playthrough I could. I was into it really big. And then 2019, the Smoke Room update, first update of Smoke Room came out, and I started playing that, and I was into it all over again. And Sam was like immediately interesting to me because of how he tied into Echo, and I was like, oh, wait a fucking second. This William guy. He looks like that character that was in Flynn. Was in the Flynn picture route. And there's Cliff. He was also in that picture. What the fuck? Like, oh man, tying it together and then going back and playing it for the channel. That was like the biggest game of connect the dots I'd ever done, and it was amazing. It was fucking amazing. And also, there were plot points that haven't happened yet in the smoke room that I that were explained in Flynn's route, like the burning of the Hendricks mansion, and it's a picture of William looking all surly like usual, and I'm like, oh shit, what's gonna happen there? Oh, that was yeah, it was really cool piecing things together that way. And yeah, overall my experience with this franchise has been really positive, and just really, really love every game. And yeah, which leads me to talk about another topic that I feel like is kind of important to talk about because There are two options for the Echo Project to do now that Arches is over and the Smoke Room is the only game left, and that is either A, to milk the fuck out of Echoverse, or let it die. Just let it die, let it run its course, let it do the message it was meant to tell, and then just let it go away. Because where we left Echo the town, empty, silent, no people. Brian's dead. That's the last like real piece of sustenance that this town had, and most likely it's just gonna rot away and be nothing but buildings in the desert. And that is honestly the best conclusion for that town that I can think of, just letting it rot. The flooding in Jenna's route, that was a bit too comical. That was way too comical for me. But this, everyone just fucking leaving, no people around, just let it rot, that's really good. I like that a lot. That's a good conclusion. However, I can think of one way that they can sort of continue the Echoverse. A horror anthology visual novel with like different people going to like in Echo throughout the ages, throughout like even before the town existed, even before the town was just like a patch of desert. You could have various different people experience this horror in like maybe 30 to 45-minute stories and move on to the next one. That would be interesting because you could fill in gaps like when did the Meseta first realize this place was cursed? Because you never really find that out. And it would be interesting to see like the first sort of encounter they had and realize, oh, this place is bad news. Let's get the fuck out. Also, it would be really devastating slash cool to see the first hysteria incident, the one with James Hendricks the first and John Begay, to see that play out. To maybe see it from John's perspective. This person that you think is in love with you and that you love is sudden you find out these horrible things about them, and then he fucking publicly executes you and blames you for these things. That could have so much potential as a horror story. But I don't think that they should do that in general. I don't think they should do anymore in the Echoverse because it's run its course. Even if it pains me to say it, even if it's like, oh, this is the end. There's going to be no more Echo games after this. There's still that kind of makes me really sad. It really does make me sad now that I think about it. Damn. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? But yeah, I really think they should just move on to objects after Arches and the Smoke Room are finished, which Arches already finished, but you know. They're probably doing like basic overall like edits to the graphics and stuff, most likely. But yeah, once Smoke Room's over, I think they should just move on to other projects entirely. Just forget the Echoverse. I still wish they would do horror. I still want them to do more horror stories, just not an Echo, because I think it's done. There's really not much you can do anymore with how they left it in Arches. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Howley will come up with some new twist that I'm not thinking of, but I honestly think they should just let it go. And honestly, I mean, they still have Kamia. Kamia is still a thing that needs to be written. They still have Internia to do. I mean, I don't know how they're going to connect Kamia to Adastra in general, but it's definitely going to be interesting because I like CPO a lot more than I liked Marco. Marco is a fucking piece of cardboard. Like if someone did like a reenactment skit of it, you could literally have a cardboard cutout with no person on it, just a cardboard cutout of a person, and that's about what Marco was. It would have been that's like Marco sucked as a protagonist, and it's just oh my god, Adastra in general. I hate Adastra in general. I fucking hate that game. But Camia with CPO and his trauma and Neferu and his trauma, like there's so much you could build on that. And also going to an entirely different world, trying to get them to like come together and like form this whole interconnected galactic empire with like the Galactus and stuff and the parents, as well as the parents being like these omnipotent things that we have no idea what they are, and are basically the villains of the story. Let's be honest, they're basically villains. Like there's so much you could do. But in conclusion, for this video that's gone kind of a hand, that was my Arches retrospective, along with other kind of out of nowhere topics. Thank you for watching, listening. I mean, there's no image with this, but whatever. You get my point. Just thanks for listening. I guess leave a like if you liked it or whatever. Subscribe if you want. But I hate that shit. I hate having to fucking say it. I don't want to say that in general. I think it's fucking stupid and tacky. But do what you want, I guess. See you next time.